Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And a very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we talk about Zachary Levi doing a video for his Instagram audience telling us to leave poor James Gunn and Peter Safran alone. They've got a good plan, to trust James Gunn, and that his Suicide Squad movie was a lot better than the first Suicide Squad movie. Well, isn't that all right for you to say, Zach? You're not the one who's lost his job. Clearly, Zach, you're not going anywhere. But you're telling us you're telling us to trust James Gunn when he's fired a brilliant version of Superman. To some people, the best version of Superman of all time. Trust the man who's fired Henry Cavill. Trust the studio who said, Henry, you're back, and then a couple of months later said, by the way, Henry, you're not back anymore. But we're just supposed to trust James Gunn and the craziest fucking studio, the worst studio in Hollywood, the dumbest studio in Hollywood. And here's some more news for you. The rumor is that the Flash movie will get some kind of TV spot at the Super Bowl. This is a pretty big deal because Warner Brothers haven't plugged anything at the Super Bowl for many, many years. But let me ask you this question. We haven't had one full trailer of the Flash movie. We've seen a couple of clips, really small. They have not promoted this movie. We've had a prequel comic, of course. Have we had posters? I think we've had posters, but we haven't had a full trailer. So they're going to spend all that money, because it's not cheap to promote something at the Super Bowl. So they're going to promote a TV spot for the Flash and spend all that money on a film that's potentially got no interest attached to it and just controversy and doesn't have much chance of making a lot of money. There's an old saying, basically throwing good money after bad, and that's what this situation is. But they seem very, very desperate all of a sudden to promote this movie. Wonder why that is. Is it because they spent so much ridiculous amount of money on this film? Because this was the film that was going to turn everything around, create a new timeline. Does it still create a new timeline? Does it create James Gunn's new timeline? I have no fucking idea what they're planning, but they're getting desperate. This is desperado time. Zachary Levi's video to his Instagram audience is fucking desperate. Please leave James Gunn alone. Please trust James Gunn. That's why James Gunn did the Twitter thread. It's desperation. Firing Henry Cavill, which is exactly what it was, has caused a ferocious reaction from the online community. And this is not just Snyder fans, but they are the vocal, not minority, but majority, whether you like them or not. They're taking this fight to Warner Brothers Discovery. James Gunn, well, I would say Peter Safran, but he's got the best part of this marriage, hasn't he, with James Gunn? I mean, the geezer's wearing his invisibility cloak. No one can see him. Nobody knows where he is. He ain't got any pressure. And really, in a lot of ways, he's allowing James Gunn to be hung out to dry. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. But he's got the best fucking job in Hollywood right now, Peter Safran. He doesn't really seem to have to do much, and he doesn't come out and talk to people, and he's not getting pelters, and he's not really getting abused. It's James Gunn who's getting, abused. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, listen, on what Zachary Levi has had to say, I think it's desperate. It's pathetic to blatantly come out and say that James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie is better than the first Suicide Squad movie. There were better ways of saying he made a really good Suicide Squad movie. But to disrespect that first Suicide Squad movie is actually disgusting. I actually really like the first Suicide Squad movie, warts and all. I think it's a better interpretation of Harley Quinn. We get lots of great cameos from The Flash, from Batman. We see Bruce Wayne in a post-credit scene with Amanda Waller. I think it's a really good film. And I'm sure that David Ayer's film is so much better as well. But yeah, and let's not forget, the first Suicide Squad movie made just under 800 million, and James Gunn's Suicide Squad was a flop at the global box office. So yeah, all this just shows you how desperate they are. It's desperado times. basically coming soon, Zachary Levi starring in The Desperado. Basically, the fans are winning. Now we're seeing huge broadsheets talking about the fans taking the fight to the studio. It feels like the fight to release the Snyder Cut all over again. And what the fans are doing here, whether you agree with it or not, is becoming very effective. Even the stuff about the historical tweets, which I don't go on to, I don't talk about that on my channel, and I don't retweet stuff that talks about that because I don't really want to go there. Now, you know, it is a dangerous situation for James Gunn because it's a situation he can't deny. He made some despicable historical tweets. They're always going to be there for the world to see. He has apologized, but he didn't come forward with these tweets. Basically, he was found out by people he rubbed up the wrong way. And you know, what else could Snyderverse stands find out in the future? So I believe that Henry Cavill will be brought back as Superman. I think they will backtrack on the position to fire him. They won't restore the Snyderverse. There's little chance of that. But although, you know, we do now know that before Gunn and Safran came in, they were thinking, or apparently it was very close for them restoring the Snyderverse. So it looks like DeLuca was very interested in taking DC Studios over and restoring the Snyderverse and going with Zack Snyder. So that's very, very interesting indeed. And then Zaslav said, oh, no, you don't. What changed their minds was the Black Adam box office. It looks like they blamed Henry Cavill and the Snyderverse for the failure of Black Adam, which is ridiculous, which proves these people don't know what they're doing. Of course, there's problems with the DCEU. We know that the DCEU hasn't really brought home the bacon, but that's since Zack Snyder left. Zack Snyder's movies, even the Suicide Squad movie, which wasn't his movie, but he had a lot to do with, not the version they fucking retooled, by the way, that they released as the theatrical version. But Zack Snyder's movies actually did okay at the box office. They didn't break any records, although the opening to BVS was huge. It was the drop-off that was the problem. But I wouldn't go as, you know, you can't say that Zack Snyder's DCEU movies, the two that were released theatrically, were flops. A flop is when a movie doesn't make money. Man of Steel and BVS just didn't make the money the studio wanted at the time. But James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was an official flop. It made zero profit. Even with its views on HBO Max, that didn't bring home the bacon. That didn't give them theatrically the kind of money they wanted. We were all predicting $1 billion box office because James Gunn was attached to that movie and a DC movie, and we were very excited at the time. James Gunn has blundered in since becoming the co-chair of DC Studios, saying some really, really dumb things and confusing the fans and the audience even further. And you know, I think people were much more excited about these 4 DCEU movies coming out next year before James Gunn blundered in and opened his big gob. And before he sacked Henry Cavill, there was going to be more excitement for next year's 4 movies. Now, nada. Those movies will make absolute jack shit. Because one of the reasons people were excited for next year was hoping we see Henry Cavill cameo in these movies or being mentioned as Superman in these movies. There's not a chance. Everyone loves Henry Cavill as Superman. It's as simple as that. And they are not going to get away with removing him from the DC live action universe. It's as simple as that. They will have to backtrack. It's a very difficult decision for them now because, as we know, Zaslav is very, very reactive. So it's not, he right now is got his, you know, his head in his hands. He is shitting himself. That's why Zachary Levi is begging the fans to back off. That's why James Gunn did that Twitter thread. And since that Twitter thread, he's been hiding away on that other social media platform barely nobody goes on, confirming that he's working with his good friend Jim Lee. He'll probably sack him today, but his good friend Jim Lee in connecting the comics to the movies a lot more. I like that idea. It's something I've said should always be the case. Look, it could be hot air, but we'll see. If he even gets the opportunity to go that far. I want to paint you a scenario, because I kind of hinted about this, because I want to be careful here. what if the Snyderverse fans unearth something else controversial about James Gunn? I mean, he's been deleting tweets as much as he can. He's got an auto-delete function. He's got an auto-delete function for a reason. So people saying, you see, Ray Fisher, it's auto-delete. Yeah, my tweets don't auto-delete. Do you realise how many shitty takes historically that I don't agree with now I've got on my Twitter? I haven't deleted fucking anything. Doesn't matter. I don't care. You stand by what you say, but you say, right, I've evolved since then, and I don't think that anymore. And that's that. But obviously, I don't go around making jokes about children being abused. That is the difference. So when people see this, it's very difficult for the company. The company is losing money hands over fist. You know, the stock share is still plummeting. And the Henry Cavill decision is causing a bigger financial meltdown. Bringing back Cavill and having Cavill come out after that Black Adam post-credit scene that he's back for good really did steady the stocks of Warner Brothers. You'll be surprised. They were very steady at the time. But since the announcement that he's being replaced as Superman, they've been in freefall. So this is what I'm saying to you. As a business decision, Zaslav's going to have to say, you can't get rid of Henry Cavill. It's a very messy situation here. Look, I do foresee Michael DeLuca taking over at DC Studios. I don't know when this will happen. I don't know how badly things will have to get. I don't even, it might be a situation where James Gunn may not be able to even execute the plan that he has. He's put himself in a really bad position here because really the studio announced 2 months ago Henry was back. It's a decision you'd have to live with. Even if you say, listen, me and Henry, James Gunn comes out and says, me and Henry have discussed this. He wants to make one more great movie as Superman, then bow out properly. People would have said, that's sad, but that's fair enough if that's Henry's decision and your decision, James. That would have been better. One more film just to bow out as Superman before he introduces his own universe. That would have made some money, but they don't want to do that. They just want to cut ties with Henry Cavill. I'm not saying a full reboot isn't right, but I don't think we discussed this already. I don't think we're getting a full reboot anyway, because the way Zachary Levi is talking, it seems like he remains in a job. How does he remain in a job? But how can, as we discussed yesterday, how can you recast Superman and not recast the others? It really doesn't make sense what he's planning. And that's James Gunn's fault. He has confused us all with the shit that he said. He has caused his own problems. He's done this to himself. If he in fact does have to step down, and that wouldn't surprise me, because let me be clear here, the accusations, the historic tweets are things that can't be denied. So he can go around talking about a toxic minority, but he's the one who made the jokes. And he's the one who's, let's just say, associated with some unsavory characters, let me put it that way, in the past. There's pictures of them together. The Snyderverse fans have unearthed this. Now, whatever you want to say, whether that's right or wrong or toxic, this is the position that Warner Brothers Discovery are now in. So all of a sudden, James Gunn isn't the sure bet that David Zaslav thought he would have been. Because maybe that David Zaslav is so unclued up that he didn't even know about the historical tweets. Maybe they were so stupid they thought they could just fire Henry Cavill with no issue. But the huge issue was you brought him back 2 months ago. If you didn't do that, if you didn't put him in the Black Adam post-credit scene and then said you were replacing him, people still would have been angry, but not like this. People feel like they've been lied to. People feel, they can't trust you. And that's where we are with this. So it's a messy situation. I keep on hearing people saying, well, James Gunn's come in to do a really difficult gig. Yes, he has. No one's denying it. But he's made a difficult gig even harder. And I'll repeat myself again. What he did with the teases and everything else and confusing the issue, if he wanted to talk as much as he did, again, I'm repeating myself and I apologise. But I have to make this clear that he should have told us. We should have at least known from the beginning, full reboot or just a reboot of sort. Or, he's basically told us anyway, hasn't he? he's changing some things and not changing other things. So that is not a full reboot. That's problematic to me and many people. So why has Henry Cavill been removed as Superman? Could it be because he's British, because he's not part of the club, because he doesn't have that Hollywood DNA? Is that the real reason Henry Cavill's been removed? Let me ask you another question. Back in the Hamada era, why was it okay for Ben Affleck to get a huge opening sequence in the Flash movie? A great grandiose moment for Batfleck, which he calls his best moment cinematically for his Batman. Why did he get to do that, but Henry Cavill didn't get a big Superman scene, or maybe an opening scene with him and Batfleck saving the day along with the Flash in that movie? Why wasn't Henry Cavill involved? Why was he blacklisted as Superman? As I say, could it be because he's British, or because he's got that Hollywood? He hasn't got that Hollywood DNA. Right now, the people who have been removed: Patty Jenkins, good decision. The Rock, good decision. Henry Cavill, totally shit decision. This is the worst tactic he could have done. And James Gunn, obviously, is so arrogant, he thinks he's more popular than Henry Cavill. He's bigger than anything, and he can do whatever he wants. As I say, if the man rolled up in his big car, in big boots, and said, "I'm burning it all to the ground," and he said that out and proud, I would have said, well done, that's what needs to happen. It does. And I know Snyder fans and other fans won't be happy with me saying that, but no one can deny that the DCEU has been ruined by this fucking studio. Not Zack Snyder, but this fucking studio. And has given anyone taking over no choice but to burn the thing to the ground. You've got two decisions. You either burn the thing to the ground, carry on as normal and continue to fail, or bring back Zack Snyder. They're your options. Now, Mike DeLuca obviously wanted to bring back Zack Snyder, wanted Henry Cavill to do a Man of Steel 2. He wanted to restore the Snyderverse. And now, we can all say that that's a bit of a weird decision, and cinematically, how's that going to make money? And clearly, Zaslav's thinking to himself, hang on, Mike, that's not going to make money. But Mike's not thinking about the business side, and Zaslav is, because this is a company that needs $3 to $4 billion raised very quickly. Warner Brothers Discovery could go bankrupt by this time next year. That's how serious the situation is. That's why they're hurriedly trying to create this DC universe to try and make as much money back as possible. And these movies are going to be made very cheaply, everyone, because there's no money there. So the James Gunn DC universe is going to be a very cheap bargain basement universe. It's not going to be Man of Steel. You're not going to see the great CGI. That's probably why it's not going to be an origin movie, because they can't afford to even be on fucking Krypton. Can they afford to give us a Fortress of Solitude? What kind of movie is this going to be? So, despite James Gunn's blarney about how he's going to do this and how he's going to do that, right now, it's all talk. Bullshit walks and people talk. There's no evidence of what we're going to get yet, because we're in the early stages. The man has spoken too much. So this is where we are. Do you go with Mike DeLuca wanting to bring back the Snyderverse and do a Man of Steel 2? Or do you go with James Gunn, who wants to change things, some things, and not others? Because they're the facts. There's no full reboot here, unless he changes his mind. And something else, by the way, I do believe that they had every intention of firing Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. But now that Zaslav's seen the heat they're getting for Cavill, they know they can't do it. Because if they were to fire Gal Gadot, and some people are talking about it on Twitter already that she has been fired, I have heard no clarification of this from the studio or anyone reliable, so I'm not going to go down that avenue until it's official. I think they do want to get rid of her, and now they can't. And this is why I think they will backtrack on the Henry Cavill decision. I think Henry Cavill will remain as Superman after all is said and done, because they can't afford this. This is why they got Zachary Levi begging people and being disrespectful about the first Suicide Squad movie. They are desperate. Leave poor James Gunn alone. That's what he's saying. No, you leave us alone. Why are we... James Gunn and Peter Safran have got really difficult jobs. Do you know what's difficult, mate? Being homeless. living in poverty. Give over your money, give over your house to 50, 60 homeless people living in Hollywood. I've seen the people that the Hollywood elite trample all over Hollywood. There's a section of Hollywood that's full of homeless people, and they literally just drive past them in their limos. They are terrible people. Excuse me. They are terrible people. It's as simple as that. And, you know, at the end of the day, when he makes this video and starts saying, oh, you know, leave poor James Gunn alone, him and Peter have got a hard job. Yeah, it's a difficult job. We all know that. But they've made it far worse than it had to be. There were easy decisions that they could have made here, and they decided not to make them. They decided to throw out teases out of context. They decided to reboot some things and not other things, which to me sounds very, very messy. It doesn't. We don't even know what it is. That's the thing. At this stage, after weeks and weeks, we don't know what this thing is. He says one thing and does another. He won't even clarify anything. Who says we're firing Gal? Okay, you're not firing Gal, but you fired Henry. So how can you have the same Wonder Woman but a different Superman? It don't fucking make sense, does it? Do you understand? This is what I'm talking about. Him blundering in, saying shit, confusing everyone, firing Henry Cavill, causing a storm amongst the fandom. He actually has done very few things since he's come in. It's all ego and vanity with this man. He's created a huge problem. And I do support the Snyderverse stands for fighting him. Now, as I say, I don't get involved with the stuff about the historical tweets because I don't want to get involved with that. I want it to be a clean fight. But when did Hollywood fight a clean fight? Look what they did to Zack Snyder. Maybe they deserve this kind of treatment. I don't know. But I am triggered by the firing of Henry Cavill. I do think it's bad. I did expect it, but still, it's been handled really, really badly when you look at the historical situation between WB and Henry in the first place. And now we're back to this again. Listen, the old wills that used to run WB, that blacklisted Henry Cavill, are still there in the background. They're still running this thing. And considering it looks like James Gunn isn't rebooting everything totally, and he's changing some things and keeping others, it's clear to me people like Toby Emmerich are still somewhere in the background. That the Hamada kind of idea is still there in the background. And what they're doing, they're using James Gunn because he has, people trust him. So they're hoping that he can manipulate us all and con us all into thinking that everything's going to be so grandiose and so MCU phases 1 to 3. Now, is that the case? Well, we don't know right now. We do know that Henry Cavill is not Superman anymore, and this has caused a storm. Such a huge storm. And as I say, these fans are causing such a storm that, newspapers like the New York Times are talking about this. Fox News are talking about this, and other outlets are talking about this. I'm not talking about small outlets. I'm talking about huge outlets. When Henry Cavill was removed as Superman, it was on huge news bulletins. This is how big and popular Henry Cavill is as Superman. Don't forget, this is not a stepping down. This is not Henry Cavill wanting not to play Superman. This is the studio removing him. And I don't see any reason why they're doing this. Now, James Gunn says it's because he's a younger Superman. I'm calling him on bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that. And until we see who he casts, and now he's going to have to cast someone who's about 20 to prove that you couldn't have Henry Cavill because he wanted a younger Superman. Why does he want a younger Superman? Now, obviously, maybe it makes better business to have a younger Superman. Maybe that's a way of making Superman more relevant in this modern era. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know, because I don't know anything, because none of us have been told anything. He just does and says stuff and confuses the issue even more. And this is where we are now. But the fans are not going to give up. They're going to go after James Gunn, and he's not a watertight leader because of the historical tweets. Yes, this is what gives him a very, very unsturdy platform with a very weak foundation, everyone. And this is the problem he's in. Because, as I keep on saying, he could have given more clarity to what he was planning to do, which wouldn't have spoiled anything. All people really want to know is, are you just burning everything down, or are you just changing something? What are you doing here? Nobody knows what you're doing and you're keeping it a secret. But it's not working. And now you've publicly fired Henry Cavill and pretended you've had a chat with him about him doing other things in the future, and Henry's fine. I'm sure Henry isn't fine with losing one of the best jobs in the entertainment industry. And the fans mostly are not happy with Henry Cavill losing his job. We may see Gunn cast a better Superman. And hey, if that's the case, that's the case. We'll have to wait and see on that. And maybe Gunn can weather this storm. You know, funnier things have happened. We saw Tim Burton come in, cast Michael Keaton, and everyone hated that. So you never know. But we do live in different times. When that happened back then, there was no internet. It wasn't a place for fans really to have a voice, apart from outside the cinema when they were being interviewed by the press. So we are we live in different times. Us, the consumer, have got a louder voice. And since the removal of Henry Cavill as Superman, we've heard this voice get really loud. So James Gunn is wrong. This is not just a small toxic minority. This is a huge a majority, if you like, not a minority, a majority. And what's happening here is that fans are making their voices heard, and it's not just the Snyderverse fandom. And this is the problem they've now got. You've got a hashtag, Fire James Gunn, that's over 50k tweets now, which is insane. And, you know, as I say, Zaslav is a very, very reactive man. So no, James Gunn's job isn't safe. There's more chance of Henry Cavill returning as Superman than there is of James Gunn keeping his job. The good ship James Gunn isn't a sturdy one. And he's so triggered by what's going on Twitter, he's moved to another platform. He's posting stuff on the other platform because he can't even go on there without being, bamboozled by all these people who are very, very upset with him. And James, if you're surprised about this situation, I'm surprised at you. But I should never be surprised at how they just don't understand. They believe they're making fan fiction. I swear it. They don't seem to think they're working in a consumer-based industry. Without the consumer, you've got nothing. We need you to make the shit and be in the shit. But you need us to give the money over. That's the problem. And you've upset a whole audience. All your customers, there's not one customer who didn't like Henry Cavill as Superman, even if they didn't like the films he was in. Everyone loves Henry Cavill as a person. He's a lovely man. And we all love him as Superman. We wanted him to continue as Superman for at least one more movie and a few cameos. And then you could have ended it, finished it off. But you don't want to do that. As I say, the best way of them making money is for them to burn everything to the ground and start again. But it doesn't seem like they're going to make that smart decision. They look like they're going to make more dumb decisions by keeping some stuff and getting rid of others. And getting rid of Henry Cavill and getting rid of Henry Cavill, but keeping Zachary Levi Shazam is utterly toxic. Zachary Levi has Hollywood DNA. He's American. Basically, Henry Cavill doesn't have Hollywood DNA, isn't part of the club, and is British. Are you seeing something going on here? These are the things that people are going to be saying, that people are saying right now. It's a messy situation, but I believe to the fans who are going out there speaking out about this decision, keep on going. They're getting very, very nervous, and very soon they are going to backtrack on their decision to remove and replace Henry Cavill as Superman. This has been Friday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.